Hi everyone, I'm going to show you how to create a photo collage of a face using a bunch of pictures of food. And this is going to be a way to practice using a bunch of different selection tools and also the move tool. To get started, you'll need to create a new canvas. You can do exactly what you did in the previous project and just copy an image, but I want to show you another way to, or copy an image and then use the dimensions of that image. But I want to show you just the fact that you can manually just set the width and height as well. So let me just say, I'm just going to give it a name. And I'm going to set my width to 1000 and my height to 1000. And just create. So I just chose a width and a height, 1000 by 1000. So in this case, I'll probably just have to adjust my images to fit the canvas. So first I'll get my background image. I'll copy that, paste it. It's a little bit small. So what I can do though is resize it pretty easily, either by hitting Control T to bring up transform controls, or using the move tool. As long as this checkbox right here is selected, I can see if it's, notice how when I check it, the transform controls where you can click and drag the edges to resize show up. When that's not checked, they go away. So I'm going to keep that on. And I'll just resize. I'm going to hold shift so it doesn't stretch in any weird directions, and just expand it. If you don't hold shift, you could end up sort of like skewing it, and it could look warped and weird. Unless you're trying to do that on purpose and you want it to look warped, but I didn't, so I held shift. Another important note is that when I was done with that, you might have noticed I clicked a checkbox. Let me just I'll do another transform just so you can see. So see how this checkbox shows up, this check mark? As I'm moving things around, I'm stretching and all this moving, clicking and dragging. I could either decide to accept and check the check mark to commit the transform and it finishes the transform, or I can cancel the transform. I'm just going to cancel because it was already doing what I wanted it to do. It's always good practice to name your layers, so I'm going to name this layer just by double clicking right here on the thing that says layer 1. I'll call it Melon. And I'm just going to name all of my layers because later you're going to start to build up a bunch of layers, and it's going to be pretty annoying if you don't know what layer is actually what. So naming your layers is really helpful. Alright, so next what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to get some more food to add to this so I can start building something that looks like a face. So I have this food2.jpg. I'll copy that. And I'm actually going to put it on another tab because you'll see in a minute why. I'll actually be able to have both tabs next to each other. So I'm going to create another new file. This one I'm just going to match the clipboard size. I only did it the other way for demonstration. I'm not even going to title this because I'm not keeping it. It really doesn't matter. This is temporary. It only exists so I can copy stuff out of it after I select it. So what I'm going to do though, so I can see both tabs, is click Window, Arrange, and anything that puts them in the orientation that you want. So like tile all vertically, which is make everything vertical. If you have more tabs, there will be more things there. If you want to limit it, for example, like 2 up vertical would limit it to only 2 things vertically. I only have 2 things, so the end result's going to be the same if I click tile all or 2 and click 2. I wouldn't really want more than 2 things on this display. It's not very big and it wouldn't hold more than 2 things and actually be able to see them. So now I'm going to need to make some selections of food and move those selections of food. I'll just copy them and then paste them over on the other tab. So if I'm going to go through a few different options for selection tools and explain a little bit about how each of them works. So first, the marquee tool. This one just lets you make really simple shapes. So for example, you can just make rectangular selections, elliptical selections, which are like circles and ovals, or single rows of pixels. We're not really going to use single row all that much, but rectangular and elliptical can really come in handy. If you just need to make a simple selection, you don't need to be fussy about it. You just need to have just some broad area to work with. Or if, the thing you're selecting is that shape. So in the case of, I think I could make pretty good use of the elliptical marquee. So I'll select elliptical. I'm just going to make a round selection. I'll make a selection of this orange, and all I'm going to do is, so I've got a round selection selecting the orange, and I've got layer 1 selected. That's important. That's the layer that actually contains the food. So you gotta make sure you have an active layer that contains the actual thing you want, and then you have a selection that's over the top of it. So I've got the orange selected. I'm going to copy with Control C. I'm going to go over to my other tab and Control V. And now that I've got my orange over here, I can relocate with the Move tool, this one. And since my transform controls are on, after I move, I can just do some resizing as well. And then I'll paste another one. And move on to my next one. So I also have lasso tools that I can work with. Let me just come back over here. The lasso tools, you have a freehand lasso where you literally just draw the selection. So this is good for like really complicated selections where you're not going to be able to really get get it really exact with any kind of automatic method. So for example, if I choose this one, I could maybe trace something that's just, it would be probably really difficult to get with one of the simpler tools, like this really complex like leaf. The carrot, is it carrot greens? Yeah, the carrot greens. So the carrot greens, it's kind of all just a mess. I might just want to try to get as close as I can and just be okay with that. So I'm just going to kind of trace a line. I'm going to get as close as I can to the edges of this. And if it's in a case where I'm not super concerned about being really precise, if I was concerned about being really precise, I could just zoom in and be really careful. But in this case, I just want to trace like a rough approximation of this kind of complex outline of these greens. Right? It's not, I don't want to have a ton of extra white on the outside, but it's also not going to matter that much if I have some. So I'll just include whatever I can manage to include, finish my selection, I'll copy that, and I'll paste a few of them because I'll need a bunch to make hair. Now I'm rotating. You'll notice that what I'm doing to rotate is I'm hovering my mouse off the edge. So if I'm hovering my mouse directly on this box, it allows me to stretch, which is fine. I might want to make this bigger, but if I want to rotate, I have to hover off the edge more, and you'll see how it turns into a curved arrow. Now I can actually rotate. Alright, got some hair. Let's add something else. I'll do that using another tool. So within still within the selection of lasso tools, there's a polygonal lasso. That just lets you draw shapes by clicking points and it draws straight lines in between the points. So for something where that could be useful is something like the caret. Maybe I just want a very triangular selection of caret, like not the whole thing, not the accurate edges of it. I just kind of want triangles of caret. Well, I can just draw a triangle with this tool by clicking where the angles go. And I'll add that. And also within the lasso group is the magnetic lasso. And the magnetic lasso just clings to the edges of things. So, for example, let me see how well it works on the broccoli. Let's go for the broccoli. With the magnetic lasso tool, notice it's got a picture of a magnet on its icon. What this does is, notice how as I move the lasso, I'm not telling the lasso to stick. Like, it's kind of hard to see at this point, but notice how my mouse is actually kind of off the edge, but it's still sticking to the edge anyway. So the magnetic lasso like clings to edges. It's not perfect. Notice it kind of went off the edge a little. And so what you can do is you can guide it. Like, you can put your mouse around where you want it to be and then click. So kind of like the polygonal lasso, when you click it drops a point. However, it'll also smooth the edges in between because it'll cling to any edges that it sees. And that wasn't a perfect selection, but it was pretty good. I think it'll be okay. If I wanted to get it a little bit closer, what I could have done was the same thing that I did, but just click more often. Be careful, but like click to lock in those points more often so that I know where it's going to go. The longer you go without telling it where to put a point, the greater the chance that it decides it thinks there's an edge where there isn't, and it goes off in some direction that you don't want it to go. See, that was a much more close selection. So I'm going to copy that and add that to my photo collage. I think I'll add this as ears, and this is something that you can do as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use part of the broccoli, and I'm just going to erase another part. So I'll erase the parts that I don't need. So let's just say I want to add an ear, thinking I don't actually want this to just be sticking out. I kind of only want part of it. I'm going to grab the eraser tool. I'll apply the transformation. I'll add that eraser tool, and I'll just erase what I don't need from broccoli. I could probably be a little more careful. My eraser tool is a little bit large, so I'm trying to just get really close to the edges of this picture, and that should be good. I'm also going to copy that over to the other side. And actually what I'm going to do is, so this is layer 9 that I'm working with. I've been making the mistake of not labeling my layers. I'm going to call this one left ear. And I'm actually going to duplicate the left ear, so I'll duplicate layer. All I did was right click on the left ear layer and click duplicate layer. And left ear copy is actually going to be the right ear. And I'll just bring it over to the other side and flip it around. And so the last set of tools that I have to work with is the quick selection set of tools. One is the magic wand and one is called quick selection. So these kind of automatically select things for you based on the color of the objects that it's selecting. So like quick select can be really easy to work with if it's easy to see the differences between what you want and what you don't want. So in this case, like, it's really obvious in some, like for a lot of these where there's a hard edge, like this pear is just like a really clean line. It would probably be like a little bit slow to painstakingly like trace around the outside of this gradual curve, but quick select is going to easily identify the difference between this like green set of pixels where the pear is and the white pixels where the background is. So if I just click with the quick select, I can just add chunks of this to it. And actually, let me I have to deselect because I hadn't deselected my broccoli, and I'll just redo that. So you notice I clicked twice in the general area of the pear and it just locked on. It was just like, yep, all this stuff is kind of green, greenish yellow, dark green, light green. It's all green. I know where the edge is, and it just identifies the edge right away. So quick select can be really easy sometimes, especially if you have a background that's really different from what you're trying to select. So where could I put the pear? I'm not really sure. I don't know if it like even really fits all that well. You know what I think I'll do? Yeah, I'll still use it. I'll use it as a nose, though. I'm going to replace the carrot nose. I don't want a carrot nose. I think I want a pear nose. And I think I'll use the carrot as like a crooked mouth. So I'll just grab the carrot and move that. There. Now my carrot's a crooked mouth instead. And then the last remaining quick selection type tool is the magic wand. And the difference between quick selection and magic wand is really subtle. Magic wand selects things based on similarity in color. So let me find something that's kind of all one color, but not quite. So with a magic wand, you might think, oh man, this cucumber would be perfect. It's all green, except some of the pixels are nothing like other pixels. And it turns out I'm just selecting just like dots because there's so many differences. Well, that's because my tolerance is really low. And what the tolerance is like the range of colors that it allows into the selection. So 1 is really small, so it's like it probably only will match exact colors. What if I set the tolerance to like 30 and I start clicking? Now it starts including a lot more things, and as I click around, it's really including a lot. Not all of it though. Let me try something like 60. That's working a lot better. It's still leaving out those really bright dots. I don't know if I'll ever really be able to get it. And this is a case where maybe, let me try 80. I don't know if I'll, oh, there it goes. So yeah, I think I got all of them. I can also just individually click a few stragglers. But you can see, like, sometimes you have to set the tolerance. If you set the tolerance really high, it'll work pretty well. For even pretty different colors, like ranging from a light green that's so light that it's almost white to yellow to green, but they're all close enough together. They're definitely not just the white background on the outside or this like black line. So they're close enough together for the magic wand to work. So I'll select that. What am I going to do with this cucumber? I think I could. I suppose I could make some kind of like, try some like facial hair. I'll just combine a bunch of them together to make like a cucumber goatee. So copy that, paste it a bunch of times. I'll rotate these later. Alright, and there is my face made out of food.